The Chicago Bears delivered an absolute beatdown in their second preseason game, shutting out the Buffalo Bills complete LY, 38-0. And when a team wins by that kind of margin, it becomes a lot easier to pinpoint who stood out. And right at the top of that list, Caleb Williams. This was the moment fans had been waiting for, his debut, and let's just say, the rookie quarterback made one heck of a first impression. What were we all hoping to see from Caleb? First and foremost, composure. A clean, smooth operation. No pre-snap confusion, no wasted timeouts to avoid delay of game penalties, and certainly no actual delay of game flags. And guess what? He delivered. The offense looked sharp from the very first snap. In fact, the only penalty in the entire first half was a holding call, and it wasn't even on Caleb, it was on Drew Dalman. That's it. That's your entire offensive penalty chart. That right there tells you this group came ready. Then came the opening drive. And if you followed the Bears last year, you know that opening drives were often a slow, painful crawl. But not this team. Caleb came out swinging, led a crisp and confident march down the field, and finished it with a touchdown. It set the tone. It sent a message. Caleb even talked about it during the broadcast when he was interviewed in the second half. He said the team knew it needed to start games better. They wanted to put points on the board early. Mission accomplished. Now let's talk about his throws. Caleb had used 4 incompletions, and honestly, 3 of them weren't really on him. There was a screen pass that the Bills sniffed out immediately. He had no choice but to throw it into the dirt. On another play, the pocket collapsed and he had to get rid of it, throwing it at Zacchaeus' feet. A third was a check down where Colby put a little more touch on it, and then there was a flat-out trap from Rome Odunze. So yeah, 4 incompletions, but nothing alarming. If anything, they just highlighted Caleb's decision-making. He didn't force anything. He took what the defense gave him and played smart, efficient football. What really impressed, though, was the variety in his passing. On 2nd and 16, he hit Colston Novelan on a depth crossing route to move the chance. That's a big team throw. Then there was the laser to Cole Met down the seam for a chunk gain of 29 yards. A solid anticipation on an out route to DJ Moore, perfectly timed and placed for a first down. These aren't just routine throws. These are NFL level reads with NFL level teaming. And the play calling helped. Ben Johnson put him in a position to cine, but Caleb executed. He looked every bit the franchise quarterback the Bears were hoping for when they picked him. And while we're handing out praise, Tyson Bagent deserves his flowers too. He started hot, 8 completions on his first 10 attempts, and finished with 13 completions on 22 throws for just under 200 yards and a touchdown. That's quality backup play. There is still that lingering question of whether he could eventually be a starter in this league. And while that remains to be seen, one thing is clear, he can handle himself. He's smart, moves well in the pocket, and has solid instincts. There was one particular play that stood out, 4th down, the pocket collapsed, and it looked like he was about to scramble. But instead, he stayed composed, stepped up, and lofted a pass over the top to Maurice Alexander for a big conversion. That's veteran-level poise. He also layered a beautiful pass to Tyler Scott in the corner of the end zone, placing it perfectly over the linebacker for a touchdown. Look, Case Keenum didn't play due to a leg injury, and while both quarterbacks are likely to make the roster, Bagent's performance showed that his ceiling is just higher right now. He's younger, is improving, and is starting to look more and more like a long-term piece for this team. Speaking of long-term pieces, how about Lamade Zacchaeus? The guy only had 1 catch in the game, but oh, what a catch it was. A simple slant route, maybe 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, and they turned it into a 36-yard touchdown. That's the kind of explosiveness that's been talked about all training camp. It's one thing to hear reports about how dynamic a player is with the ball in his hands, it's another to see it translate onto the field. And this isn't the first team has done it either. Against the Dolphins in practice, it took a short pass 70 yards for a touchdown. Against the Bills in 3 days joint practice, it did it again, another 40-plus yard score. This guy is legit. And they was signed for what? The veteran minimum? That's highway robbery. Ben Johnson made it clear when he talked over that they wanted players who can make something happen after the catch. Well, Zacchaeus fits that mold perfectly. Is quick, is shifty, and most importantly, is reliable. With the J. Moore, Rome Odunze, Zacchaeus, and now Loser Burden flashing, the Bears have a receiving corps that is suddenly looking like one of the more intriguing units in the league. And let's not forget about the tight ends either, Colemet and Colston Novelan both looked great. This offense is starting to look deep, and more importantly, balanced. Now let's talk defense for a moment. Austin Booker might have left the game with a knee injury, but before that, he continued to flash. Another sack, a couple of pressures, a few tackles, stacking performances. It wasn't the kit the dominant outing he had the week before, but made his presence felt again. The open now is that his injury isn't serious. Getting hit on special teams, especially on a kickoff to start the second half, is just brutal. But no official update was given post-game, so fingers crossed that it's nothing long-term. Because this kid is emerging as a legit rotational pass rusher, and those are hard to find. And since we're on the topic of tight ends again, don't forget about Colemet. All the buzz has been around Colston Novelan lately, and understandably so, but Met is still the steady force in that group. On the second throw of the game, Caleb found him down the seam for 29 yards, and it was a beauty. Caleb put it right on the money, and Met held it in without issue. Plus like that serve as a reminder, is still got it. Is still one of the more complete tight ends in the league, capable of helping as both a blocker and a receiver. Is not going anywhere. Of course, in any blowout like this, it's tough to find losers. You really have to dig. But if we're nitpicking, Rome Odunze at the moment they'd probably like to have back. He had one target, a 3rd and 5 throw from. One last note, Kyle Monangai didn't even play in this game, and that in itself was a missed opportunity. With DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson both sitting out, the stage was set for someone to step into that RB2 role. Monangai got injured up in 3 days practice, and it's apparently not serious, but the team couldn't have been worse. Instead, we got a heavy dose of Britton Brown and Ian Wheeler, and to their credit, both looked solid. Neither of them is likely to jump Monangai on the depth chart, but they could be taking a big step forward with a strong outing. If he's healthy for next week's preseason finale against the Chiefs, he absolutely needs to suit up. That's his chance to make a statement and secure a bigger role heading into the regular season. While most of the headlines are rightfully going to Caleb Williams and the electric performance by the offense, what made this game stand out wasn't just the flashy plays, it was the cohesion, the control, the energy from the entire team. From starters to backups. And that starts with coaching. Ben Johnson didn't just throw together a vanilla preseason game plan. You could see the intention behind the play calls, the rhythm to the drives, and the trust placed in both quarterbacks to operate freely and efficiently. For a preseason game, that level of precision is not always expected. But what it tells you is that this stuff is serious. They're not just installing a playbook, they're creating an identity. Fast, decisive, physical, and smart. And that starts under center, but it's reflected in every layer of this roster. Take the offensive line. Sure, we talked about Braxton Jones' inconsistencies, but overall, this unit gave both quarterbacks time to operate. Caleb had multiple clean packets, and even when the pressure came, his footwork and ability to navigate the routes kept the offense moving. That kind of pocket presence is not typical of a rookie making his debut. He didn't panic, didn't take unnecessary hits, and showed exactly why he was the number one pick. The offensive line, particularly the interior, held up well. There were a few run plays where the push up front allowed backs to get to the second level untouched. That's the foundation you want to see building in August. Speaking of the run game, while the backs didn't dominate statistically, the flashes were there. Ian Wheeler ran with burst. Britton Brown had a few impressive cuts and showed good vision. These are guys fighting for the bottom of the depth chart, but they're making a case. You want that kind of competition. It pushes everyone. And when Kyle Monangai returns, it's going to be even more intense. The question with him is less about talent and more about availability. Because in a preseason setting, the number one way to climb the ladder is by showing up and showing out. And Friday night, those reps went to others. The door isn't closed, but it's up to him to kick it back open. Now let's flip it over to the defensive side. One of the most encouraging things from this game was the defensive line's ability to generate pressure consistently. It wasn't just Austin Booker. You saw a swarm of different guys getting involved. The rotation was fresh, the motor was relentless, and the Bills never looked comfortable. Quarterback pressure came from the edges, from the interior, and from well-timed blitzes that caught the offensive line guessing. That type of controlled chaos is exactly what you want from a preseason front seven. It creates momentum. It wears down the opposing line. And it sends a message that this Bears defense might be a lot closer to dangerous than people realize. And let's go back to Austin Booker for a moment, because his development is turning into one of the more exciting preseason storylines. This isn't just a guy getting cleanup sacks against third stringers. It's showing real threats, the kind that translate. Burst off the edge, bend, closing speed, and a relentless motor. You can see why the coaching staff is excited. And if his injury turns out to be minor, don't be surprised if he forces his way into a real rotational role by the time week 1 rolls around. Edge rushers who can actually finish plus are rare, and the Bears might just have found one developing right under their nose. But the standouts weren't limited to the trenches. The secondary played tight, aggressive football. Coverage was disciplined, especially on third downs. The Bills struggled to move the chance, and a big reason for that was how the defensive backs communicated. There were switches and passing off of routes that looked polished, which is rare for a preseason game. It's a sign of good coaching, yes, but it also points to the level of buy-in across the board. Everyone seems to understand the assignment. Everyone is locked in. One player who deserves more recognition is Loser Burden. While he didn't have a stat line that jumps off the page, his route running, effort after the catch, and connection with both quarterbacks was evident. There is a chemistry building there. He looks like a pro already, confident, physical, and smooth. There is a quiet toughness to the way he plays, and when you watch the tape, you notice how often he's in the right spot, creating separation, or drawing attention that opens up space for others. It's going to be a key part of this offense, and it's not just hype, the tape backs it up. And how about the way Caleb Williams spreads the ball around? That might be the most underrated part of his performance. He didn't lock in on one guy. He went through his reads, hit multiple targets, and made sure everyone got involved. That kind of distribution keeps a defense honest. When you can't key in on one receiver, it opens up the playbook. Colston Loveland got locks. DJ Moore got his. Cole Met, Tyler Scott, Zacchaeus, everyone got a task. And when you have that many playmakers contributing, suddenly the hope for opposing defensive coordinators becomes a nightmare. Even on the special teams side, there was sharpness. Kick coverage was solid, lanes were maintained, and the tackling was crisp. Outside of Booker's injury, which happened during special teams, there weren't any glaring issues. In a preseason setting, where things often get sloppy in these areas, that kind of discipline is worth noting. It shows that the entire roster, not just the stars, is locked in and playing with purpose. Let's talk again about the quarterbacks, because it's worth doubling down here. Caleb Williams didn't just have a good game, he had the kind of performance that changes expectations. It's one thing to look competent in your first outing. It's another to look in total command. The moment wasn't too big. The lights weren't too bright. And the speed of the NFL? He handled it. That don't mean there won't be growing pains. Of course there will be. But the foundation is solid, the calm, the control, the accuracy, the vision, that's rare for a first outing. You just don't see rookie debuts like this very often. And Tyson Bagent might be the surprise of this preseason for a lot of people outside of Chicago, but the Bears have known for a while that this guy can play. His processing speed is underrated. He gets the ball out quickly. He don't panic under pressure. And the ball placement is consistently solid. The more he plays, the more comfortable he looks. And in today's NFL, where backup quarterbacks often end up starting multiple games in a season, having someone like Bagent ready is a massive asset. The question will be whether he can stack performances like this consistently, but the arrow is pointing up, way up. Back to the receivers, there is something brewing with this group. DJ Moore is the clear number one, the steady alpha. But behind him, there is versatility, speed, and upside. Rome Odunse at that trap, yes, but let's not pretend the suddenly on sin easy. Es been phenomenal thr. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy, drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Rumors have been swirling around the NFL after shocking news broke yesterday regarding the Chicago Bears quarterback, Caleb Williams. Insiders say that the team is in complete disaster following an announcement that Williams has been suspended for 2 full years due to a doping violation. While the league has yet to release a fully detailed statement, whispers from locker room sources suggest that the suspension stems from multiple positive tests over a period of months, creating waves of speculation about how long the Bears may have known about the situation before it became public. Fans have taken to social media, with some questioning the legitimacy of the tests and others expressing outrage over the impact this will have on the team's future. Analysts are suggesting that this suspension could change the trajectory of the Bears' upcoming season entirely, leaving the team scrambling for an alternative quarterback and potentially destabilizing morale across the roster. Agents, former players, and even rival teams are reportedly following every new detail closely, while speculation continues to grow about whether Williams' career in the NFL might ever recover from such a serious setback. The rumor mill suggests that private meetings with league officials have already begun, but nothing has been confirmed publicly. The Chicago Bears organization has remained unusually tight-lipped, fueling further speculation among sports commentators and fans alike. Rumors indicate that the front office may have been aware of irregularities in Williams' testing results weeks before the official suspension was announced, leading to internal tensions that have yet to be addressed publicly. Sources close to the team suggest that coaches and senior management have been deliberating quietly on potential replacements, with discussions reportedly involving backup quarterbacks and free agent prospects in anticipation of the disruption to the season. Analysts are weighing the impact on the team's offensive strategy, as the loss of Williams, who has been regarded as a cornerstone of the Bears' attack, could significantly alter game plans and team chemistry. Meanwhile, the sports media landscape has been saturated with debates, panel discussions, and expert conjecture, each adding to the ongoing rumor frenzy surrounding Williams' future. Fans are speculating not only on who will step into the starting role but also on the broader implications for the Bears, standing in the league and their draft strategy in the coming years. The suspense and uncertainty are creating an atmosphere of anticipation and anxiety that shows no sense of abating anytime soon. Reports from unnamed league insiders indicate that Caleb Williams' suspension may have deeper implications than initially understood. With some suggesting that additional investigations are underway to determine whether other players might have been involved or affected by similar practices. The rumor mill claims that internal league memos circulated within the past weeks hinted at irregularities in performance-enhancing substance testing, although concrete details remain scarce. Speculation has grown that the suspension could set a precedent for other athletes, particularly younger players who are closely watching Williams' situation as a cautionary tale. The public's reaction has been a mix of disbelief and criticism, with fan forums flooded by conflicting narratives that range from claims of unfair targeting to assertions that the punishment is justified and overdue. Meanwhile, team insiders are reportedly attempting to maintain normal operations, but the disruption caused by the suspension appears unavoidable. With several key staff members allegedly convening emergency meetings to reassess recruitment, practice schedules, and offensive strategy. Pundits and commentators continue to fuel the story with speculative reports, often citing unnamed sources, which has intensified the frenzy and created a pervasive sense of uncertainty throughout the league and its fan base. In addition to internal team dynamics, market reactions have been surprisingly strong, as rumors suggest that merchandise sales related to Caleb Williams have been affected. With some fans reportedly returning jerseys or boycotting upcoming games. Sports betting analysts are quietly monitoring the situation, as speculation about the Bears' future performance has introduced new variables into betting lines and predictive modeling. Meanwhile, rumors indicate that rival teams are seizing the opportunity to scout and recruit, sensing a possible weakening in the Bears' offensive core. There are whispered claims that some league officials may have been in confidential consultations regarding Williams' case months in advance, which could explain the suddenness and severity of the 2-year ban. Public relations experts suggest that the Bears will need a carefully crafted communication strategy to manage both fan sentiment and media scrutiny. While insiders predict that the suspension could lead to cascading consequences across team sponsorships, marketing campaigns, and player morale. In locker rooms across the NFL, speculation is reportedly rampant, with some athletes expressing sympathy for Williams and others questioning the integrity of his performance during prior seasons, creating a tension-filled narrative that seems poised to dominate sports headlines for weeks. Finally, as the rumor network continues to buzz, speculation surrounding Caleb Williams' personal and professional response has become a focal point. Sources suggest that legal advisors may already be exploring potential appeals, though the likelihood of a successful challenge is widely debated. Reports from close acquaintances indicate that Williams has been silent publicly, fueling wild speculation about the emotional and psychological toll the suspension may have on him. Analysts are projecting long-term consequences, not only for the Bears but also for the broader perception of doping in professional football, which could trigger stricter league with the policies. Meanwhile, fans, media, and the sports commentators continue to dissect every minor detail, from cryptic social media posts to subtle hints dropped in interviews, searching for any clue about Williams' next move or the internal state of the team. The narrative has evolved into a mixture of rumor, conjecture, and fear, creating an atmosphere in which every announcement or delay is magnified, intensifying the ongoing frenzy. In short, Caleb Williams' suspension has transformed from a shocking headline into a pervasive story that seems destined to dominate conversations, speculation, and strategic calculations across the NFL landscape for months, with ripple effects likely extending far beyond Chicago and the Bears organization. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.